Okay, we're going to discuss 12 reasons why silver hurts werewolves. We'll go a little deeper than that, actually. This is an article written by somebody running a D&D type campaign, and he's saying, if you were running an RPG with like hand tropes, perhaps you'd want silver to be the element that can harm werewolves. Well, that would make sense, of course, because of what we know, but why? What world building reason can you think up to explain silver's ability to do this? And so look at a picture here, and it might be something that's a little bit out of proportion, of course, here. See somebody that looks like they have a bow or something, or that just could be her sash waiting out here, and a werewolf is attacking her. And she better hope that she has a silver weapon, of course, but even if you have silver, it looks like this creature at its size could just slap you into a birch tree real quick and you're gone. But werewolves have mythology that go along with them from a long way back. And we're going to make a few connections with that. Now, the wolf, as you see here, kind of, is always associated with the moon because they howl at the moon. It's something that they do. Like dogs will howl at a siren whenever it comes by. You can get wolves to do that easily. You can get out in the wild, and if you wonder if there's any wolves any near, getting out into a big valley area in the night, howl out like that, and you'll hear wolves in the distance. Now, of course, if they hear you, they call out, and it's a report letting you know, hey, we're over here, and hey, we're over there. And it's not a beckoning call necessarily, but we know that association goes with it, and so a lot of people just make that connection. The howl at the moon or bark at the moon, like Ozzy Osbourne's album where he looked like a werewolf and bark at the moon, that type of thing, you know. But it goes a lot deeper than that. And why would it have to do with the moon and silver? And what's wolves' association with that? Well, we've given part of that away now. Let's go a little bit deeper into that. So, Western alchemy connects silver to the moon. It's the mutual connection that allows silver to harm lycanthropes or werewolves. You want to have a cross if there's a vampire, and you want to have fire if there's a golem type creature like Frankenstein and so on. Usually I do these around Halloween, but got to kick this one now. I feel strange too because it could easily be put as some extra information into a sacred geometry video where we're actually dealing with math. And you wonder what that's got to do with anything that we're talking about. Why would silver be the thing? Well, there's an esoteric knowledge that goes in layers and layers, and even whenever I did the video a couple of years ago in Halloween time about werewolves and Dracula and things like that, I didn't really go into this total aspect that I'll go into now for you. In sacred geometry, which I've got a lot of other videos about, and I'm probably going to make a category for it and just make it and put the esoteric knowledge in there separate because there's so much other knowledge in other videos that go with other things. And so to pick it out a little bit, I might do such. But in that sacred geometry, we find out that 108 or 1080, or it could be 108,000, but 108 has to do with the moon, and so does 2160. One would think easily, well, that's just double that. 1080 times 2 is 2160. Well, in esoteric knowledge that people didn't know and it was hidden, secret, and occultic, they knew, finding out through sacred geometry, that our moon, half its diameter, So when you have a half moon exactly, what you would be seeing in the shine of it would be 1,080 miles. Now this also connects up to the idea of a mile and a thousand paces and so on that we've gone into, and how that works with the human form, and as above, so below, and all of that situation. But make no bones about it, anybody that's into this at all, and the ancient pagan researchers and so on, if they found something that connected to 108, they would quite often say it's a moon representation, moon cult, and so on. Such as the 108 stupas that are found, and they say that's a moon temple. How many of them are there? That's one of the questions it's going to ask. Probably while they're sitting around measuring that thing, to see if the base has a situation that goes along with exactly this too. And it's a knowledge that you can see that stretches to Indian art and through the Near East and stuff, and the Egyptian pyramids, been noted quite well in temples, what they're lined up to. You could make an all-in-one type situation like Stonehenge, and if you do it just right, it's lined up to all kinds of things with the sun, planets, and of course the moon also. In fact, the location on the Earth at its height above the equator at about 40 degrees declimates the highest point that the moon goes through its wobble of northern southern hemisphere as it goes around in a wave, pulling and pushing on the Earth. But 108 or 1080 is the diameter, and therefore it's a declination of the moon. And if you ever see that, it will be someone referring to or beckoning, summoning, or calling upon the moon, if you will, and its powers, because of what it can do, because it has the power over it. A lot of people see, well, it's a reflection. They used to make silver mirrors. They make a reflection, but the moon is brightly lit up, but it's just a reflection off the sun going from this way, and you can in fact take and redirect sunlight and make a beam, dance it around places, and make a reflection beaming back into a place. That's when silver mirrors hurt vampires and things, and of course they can't see their reflection because of reasons that I talk about in that video. Let's stay in this one a little bit. So this 1080 goes along with it, but it strangely is also the atomic weight of silver. I don't know what reasoning you want to try to give that they had figured it out to that point, or that later we gave atomic weights to things and somehow it magically fell in that exact point, in that ratio. But it's there. And there are also ancient witch tales and stuff, and magic potions and all this stuff that goes on to it, and it involves a silver bowl, or you're going to stir this with a silver spoon and so on. And you talk about silver spoons, and you wonder where the idea of silverware comes from. Well, ware we think of course, is the things we have there. Well, yeah, that word wear got taken from a few different places. You wear clothes, but there's also silverware. Yeah, it's the one thing that everybody has. You can eat with a silver spoon. It's that special stuff, and grandma has it. And you might pull it out at special occasions, but strangely, no, even at Thanksgiving and stuff, you usually don't pull that out. It's just something that just sits there and goes through the family that people have. Yeah. But esoteric things go along with this, and you can imagine an ancient gypsy trying to tell you how this all works, and from the light of the full moon and so on. These potions I talked about before, now they've figured out that, well, it involves vinegar and this, that, and the other, and that does tarnish somewhat the silver whenever you put it in it. So if you had it polished and then you put it into it, it's going to do that effect, but that also leaches out some silver into the liquid. You can make things like silver nitrate. What use does that have? It's amazing, but they use it in quite a few things. Strangely, whenever I was growing up, my parents tried to quit smoking, and one weird thing that they tried to use was silver nitrate. There was this, oh, it's a special thing, and it makes cigarettes, if you try to smoke them, taste like soap or something. It just makes it taste like crap. Doesn't work on everybody, though. I tried it, and I was like, no, it doesn't do that. When you first put it on your tongue, you kind of get oh, it makes cigarettes just taste like crap. Of course, the big answer there is that you no longer put the crap on your tongue every once in a while, and instead of wanting a cigarette, see, because you want a cigarette, you put it on your tongue, and if you smoke one, it'll taste like crap, and it's supposed to deter you. You'd have to be self-stronger enough to do that, or actually have the want to go along with that, you know. So that's actually the real reason and connection that silver has to do with werewolves. The wolf has a special connection with the moon in itself. Why is that? And it beckons at it because of its lament of the fact that its Achilles' heel, if you will, is silver because of the moon, and the moon is a moonlight essence. And in that fact, you get this idea of silver's from the moon, gold is from the sun, right? This is part of that knowledge you probably hear some gypsy telling you about. Well, one way that esoterically you can look at it is that silver isn't from Earth. All the silver on the planet actually comes from the moon after a comet strike, or perhaps the comet itself contained all the silver. Now, this is something that you could make up as a special metal in your campaign or utilize it in that situation. That's not the reality of it. But if we were to say iron, then you would actually be pulling in some truth on the fact that a lot of the meteorific iron is what started off the Iron Age, which goes way back much earlier than people give credit for. But see, it takes a silver weapon to kill something. And you can imagine that way, way back we had stuff that, esoteric things and certain ways to kill animals, and you should do things in certain ways, and we talked about elves and the way that goes along. And strangely, they always have silver weapons and that type of thing. So it works along with that. Silver forms a poisonous compound when it comes in contact with proteins unique to lycanthropes. This is something that's like you're allergic to it. There are women that don't get, if they don't have gold studs on their earrings and stuff, including my mom had this effect, it would irritate her ear. So she always had to have gold studs. Even if she had a crappy earring, she said, I still use gold studs. Didn't have the problem with silver at all. But from what I hear, there are people that definitely do, and they'll get that greenish skin. But instead of being green, it's a little more bluish because the way it reacts with it. But yeah, there's an ancient esoteric knowledge that lycanthropy was a reality and a real thing through the Middle Ages. They had problems. It's where the term lycanthropy comes from, and lunacy and so on. And it had to do with the moon, and people would lose their mind around the moon. And they were trying to figure it out. And one key point that it's written down and kept, and I mentioned it in my other werewolf video, there was this guy that they got who had lost his mind. They put him in jail. A couple of days later, he was getting all better and everything. But in the process of 2 days, he had fully grown facial hair. And there was a guy that was there whenever they brought him in fact, helped to bring him in, that showed up 2 days later, and they were like, what the hell, and how did he grow a beard this far? His fingernails had grown and so on. His eyebrows had become bushy. He was totally disheveled looking. But then he came out of it. And the moon went away, and everything was fine. and all of a sudden the guy hadn't lost it, and they were trying to figure out whether or not if he had had an allergic reaction and some freak out. The first initial thought, which was going around back then, was hydrophobia or rabies, right? Because they have a fear of water during that time and all these other things that you could use, and that's where you use the holy water from. So the concept you could use is that it's, kind of works that way. Or you could even say that it's a kryptonite type thing, and then it would draw in werewolves if you were to pull out a silver weapon and chime it against against something, that it would be almost like threatening them, and it would make something happen. Wait till the night of the full moon, go out there and chime it against that ancient stele rock that's there, and ching, and you'll hear them coming, and you better be ready. You could put all that in the campaign stuff. Oh, you could make some real neat stuff out of it. I've played werewolves in a neat way. In fact, actually, we got a point where we had potions. I showed in my other video where I can turn myself into a werewolf in my D&D game. They gave us a potion, and now I earned the right to have it the whole time, basically. And so if I want to put it in my little potion thing, I can put it on there, and then bloop, I'll turn into it. It just is an appearance thing, though. It's kind of funny to watch a werewolf sitting and shooting arrows and doing things, but the people that would also freak out, they didn't use weapons usually. They would try to beat someone to death with their bare hands and so on. They attached this wolf concept with them. Lycanthropy is a disease, and silver acts as a disinfectant or even a cure. In fact, they were back in the day trying to use it for cures for certain things. Just like you have mercurochrome, and it would help keep a wound from healing up bad, but it contains mercury. There are other compounds they would give you, and it might do something that would alleviate effect, but might have a problem later on, especially if you utilized it too many times and so on like that. They say that silver is partly exists in the spirit world, and that's where it gets its vorpal effect from. That still silver is from the moon goddess and Luna and the whole thing, and certain elements are from certain people, and they put it all together and everything. And because it has that, it partly exists in the spirit world, and that's the reason it can hurt werewolves. A lot of times when you play in D&D games, you'll say that it takes magic weapons to affect it. So it's either going to be with a werewolf, it's going to be silver. And if you had a weapon that was versus werewolves and stuff like that, it would be made of silver, of course, and then it would have an enchantments. But you can have any kind of weapon with an enchantment on it. It's magic, and it could do damage to them too. But you would do a whole lot less, if not almost none at all, damage to a werewolf with regular weapons. It'd be like trying to kill him with a paper opener or something. That's strange. A paper opener, letter openers. There was a letter opener found in the Middle Ages that had a wolf at the hosel of it, and it was just a miniature rapier type sword. This is in a museum, and it's one of the artifacts that they say was, hey, supposed to protect women from it, because it's 10.8 inches long, and they say that that has something to do with it. Well, there's that ratio that's there. It's all made out of silver. It's 108 grams worth of silver in the blade, and da da da, and all that type of crap. What? Yeah, that's why they say that. You'd say, well, what, they got a silver letter opener, huh? Well, boo. That doesn't mean it's for werewolves. No, it's got a werewolf on the tang of it on the end. It's got a wolf's head. It's got a thing, and it was kind of said that that's what it was back whenever people had this belief and thought that was going on. Silver is moonlight given solid form by magic, as gold is daylight. Now, if you go real deep in the esoteric things, this is the idea of it. And so it's pooled up moonlight that you catch into a bowl. There's some ancient spells that you have a silver bowl and you do this and the light of the moonlight and da da da, dance with the devil in the pale moonlight. Now, it doesn't say anything like that. They're just procuring up certain things, poultices and healing things. and trying to do it around certain times to give it as much power as possible to heal somebody to do things. Well, they'll call them a witch. Witches are under that. Witches, a lot of times, you'll have to have a certain thing, or, witch's bane, a certain type of wood. Witch wood, you have to have this, you have to have that, or silver. Werewolves were created on purpose, and that their weaknesses to silver was part of their design. Yeah, that when the gods made this demon on the earth, it did its thing. There's always going to be a weakness to everything. Everything, as I said earlier, has an Achilles heel situation. And because of that Achilles heel situation, you have to figure it out, and it's part of the Sherlock Holmes portion of like D&D games. It's pretty cool, but a lot of times when you use something like that, people know it. So you have to bring it into something else, and you have to explain, and then there's this ancient Romanian looking Greek lady who might show up on a cart, and you have to talk to her, and she tells you by the light of the full moon and all these things, and might even explain the radius of the earth and do things. Oh, you could throw that in the campaign and sure make it throwing some reality in the situation too, along with the mythology that goes and where it comes from. Tells you that were creatures are a cursed bloodline, cursed by a moon or silver god. The moon god of the ancient Babylonians and so on was sin. So because of a great ancient sin that they may have done, this happens to you. Something happens to you, or you were bitten by a wolf or a werewolf, and that wasn't just a wolf that bit you then, because something else is happening. What's that? That goes with that hydrophobia and rabies again, and here goes. And by the time that the next full moon hits, rabies is going to take you over, and you're going to become a wild man. And it'll get bad right at the full moon too. There's an effect that it even has on you, just like it affects the tides. It still affects people in some ways. There's a lot of crime that happens around full moons, but a lot of people say, well, because the full moon's out, you can see a little better, and people trying to ha ha ha. Silver halide is photosensitive, and so werewolves with silver in the body are night being with sunlight trapped in them. I don't know, you'd probably be able to say that a little bit better. So silver halide of course is going with halos and the sun and the fact of the reflective sun off the moon, and so it has this power of trapped light inside of itself. There's knowledge and light inside of the knowledge of silver. And so while he is a creature of the night, you're using a sun sword to attack them. This, in my D&D campaign, in the game that we play, works along with the Dracula type concept and the vampires and the sun sword. And it does extra damage, and somebody's got to pick it up, and you get a buff from it, and so on. And you use it just for this one time. No, you don't get to keep it. Silver is a conduit to positive spiritual forces. Bad news for corrupt werewolves, isn't it? So, esoterically, silver is used in a lot of things, and a lot of artifacts, and so on, as well as we find gold. Sometimes they use silver. Silver had a value to some people who had a lot of gold, more than gold itself. As in Egypt, where it's rare to find a silver artifact, but man, they had a whole lot of gold. But there are other people that had silver working and so on. Yeah, Paul Revere, and all of that. That's a more modern time, but in the Wayback Machine. But it's rare, isn't it? Silver was created by powerful beings or gods as the magic slaying metal and used for that purpose. And you could just say that in a D&D campaign and that would cover it enough, but it gives you a whole lot more if you look at all of these things and the way they work, and of course that moon connection with even the size. And it even works with the distance of the moon. We show that in sacred geometry videos. About to do another one after seeing a video that I feel is pretty important and puts it together. For there's a few pieces in there I want to throw in that were not spoken, and so another layer of that onion, if you will. Silver was created by powerful beings, though, and gods as the magic slaying metal. So, there was a esoteric knowledge that goes way back in Sumerians and so on, that Tiamat and Bahamut and this thing happened with the earth and created the earth itself and so on. And that Tiamat's, or the female aspect, her veins were veins of silver, and Bahamut's were veins of gold. And these two primordial dragons that had crashed and formed the earth, and that you should be able to find that, and that we're living on parts of their body, which would, of course, be part of the merging of planets and so on. And a lot of people believe that's how we got the moon, too. So there's the moon. There's a stolen effect from situation like that. And you find veins of silver and veins of gold. It's gold veins going through our planet that people find and they mine. And of course, the ancient dwarves and all the situation, and look at all their gold that they had. But it was gold, 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 and gold for the dragons, gold, gold, gold. What about silver? There's a silver dragon or a moon dragon, and it goes all along with this concepts too. By the gods. Especially if you got something built, that nice. Right now, if somebody gave you a sword or something that somebody had made, that'd be pretty kick-ass. But if this thing was made out of silver, you'd be like, this is worth a hell of a lot of money, and it's, and of course, if they went through the trouble, it better be made good, not just like a slop of silver. The dead used to be and are buried with silver pieces to pay their way into the underworld, to pay Charon, the boatman. Or it was pieces of gold, or it was so on. But this was actually to help pay for the burial and everything, too, to make it happen. But this association combats the lycanthrope's mystical healing. Well, yeah, werewolves have this effect where they have a regeneration real quick. That's where we get it from in the movies like a Wolverine. Make no question or qualm about it. Wolverine is a wolf guy. He's got control of this, and he's just a modern day concepted werewolf, and they put him in with this. Now, his whole body's got adamantium or in it, whatever, but they couldn't make it to where it was silver or something. That would be trying to kill him. It's supposed to be the thing that goes against it or whatever, right? But Wolverine is supposed to be taken in that situation. In that fact, he's supposed to embody this ancient mythology in a more modern PC Marvel comic books superhero situation. Yep, it's possible if you do it the right way that werewolves can even be superheroes. But what connection and why does it have a connection to the moon? Well, wolves have always had a connection to the moon, and dogs, we know that, and their connection, and that's their bane, and they cry to the moon. That guy that they had trapped that grew his hair out, he was crying and wailing, and it sounded like wolves, and it got wolves talking outside. That's one thing that, in the woods near there and stuff, and they're like, what's going on here? But 108 has to do with silver and the moon, and even the atomic weight of silver itself. Look it up. In fact, the name where we get the symbol of silver, for it's not Si in the elements, it's Ag. And that's connections that have to go with rebirth in situations that if you look into the ancient Greek word that comes from that, it goes into Latin. There shows you another connection, and why this moon, which is associated with silver, ends up being the bane of a man who has become as a wolf. But also, these people that prize silver real bad, it was a reflective upon themselves. Yeah, look in the mirror. So some of the times this was something that has to do with allergies and effects, and if you ate the wrong thing, something could happen. And I remember seeing a guy that they gave him penicillin, and even though he was sick as hell when he came in, it'd take 5 people to hold the guy down. Like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. We'll get on to some more esoteric knowledge. And look for me to refer to this again whenever we do another special on sacred geometry and another layer of that onion. Peace.